All right, diving into Dostoevsky's world today, and wow, Crime and Punishment, intense book, I gotta say. Just finished those excerpts you sent over, and the internal turmoil, man, Raskolnikov, it's a lot. Makes you think about the things people carry, you know?
It's really quite remarkable how Dostoevsky uses his own life, right? The poverty, even the imprisonment, to create this world that's so vivid, so psychologically charged. You feel it.
Mm.
And the characters, they're not just fictional, not at all. They embody the very real struggles of 19th century Russia.
Yeah, and he doesn't shy away from it either. The grime, the desperation, it's all there. 19th century St. Petersburg lips right off the page. Even just in these excerpts, honestly, you can practically smell it. It makes you realize how much our surroundings shape us, our choices.
Absolutely. Take Alyona Ivanovna, for example. The pawnbroker Dostoevsky doesn't paint the most flattering picture of her, true, but when you stop to consider her reality, the economic reality she represents, it adds a whole other layer to her character. People need her, they rely on her, but they resent her for it too.
She becomes like this symbol almost of a system that keeps people trapped.
Right?
And speaking of trapped Raskolnikov, our main character, he's a mess. A brilliant mess, sure, but a mess nonetheless. All these contradictions and that extraordinary man theory of his. Intense, is Dostoevsky like actually buying into this, that some people are above the law, or is he using Raskolnikov to critique that kind of thinking?
That's the genius of Dostoevsky, isn't it?
Huh.
He doesn't give you the easy answers. He makes you think,
Yeah.
makes you question. Raskolnikov becomes this vehicle for exploring how seductive a dangerous idea can be, how it can twist even a brilliant mind. And the fact that he's a poor ex-student adds another layer entirely. Is he driven to this extreme ideology by poverty, or is there something more, something deeper?
And the way Dostoevsky plants that seed. After the student mentions Alyona Ivanovna, it's like you're watching a car crash in slow motion. You know it's coming, this terrible thing. But you can't look away to actually be inside Raskolnikov's head during that internal monologue.
That struggle. The way he wrestles with his justifications, with his own doubts, it's what makes him so compelling, so real. Makes us question our own motivations, you know? How well do we really know ourselves? The choices we make.
And like his own internal struggles aren't enough. He's surrounded by all these other characters, and they've all got their demons, right? Marmeladov and his family, for instance, heartbreaking story, a stark reminder of how poverty can push people to the edge. And Sonia especially, the sacrifices she has to make. It's a stark contrast, wouldn't you say, to Raskolnikov's intellectual struggles.
Absolutely. Dostoevsky masterfully juxtaposes their struggles. He really does, Raskolnikov, tormented by his own mind. While Sonia faces this brutal, inescapable reality.
Mm.
And yet, there's a shared humanity there, a connection, a reminder that even when things are at their worst, even at the darkest depths of despair, people find ways to survive. It's that will to live, right?
Yeah.
That makes those moments of grace stand out even more powerful. Because even in this grim world, the world Dostoevsky creates, there are glimmers of hope. And we see that, I think, in a character like Razumihin.
Yeah, he's that friend who's always got your back, no matter how badly you screw up.
Mm.
But even with Razumihin there, Raskolnikov, I mean, he can't escape it, can he? The consequences, the murders, especially, I mean, the way Dostoevsky describes them. Brutal, visceral. It's like all of Raskolnikov's philosophical ideas just explode into this horrible, terrifying reality.
And that's a turning point, really.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about the crime itself, right? It's what it does to him, the psychological fallout, the way Dostoevsky describes it, the guilt, the paranoia, so vivid, so relatable. Even if, I imagine most of us haven't been through anything quite like that ourselves. The way he just shoves those stolen goods under a rock, throws the murder weapon in the canals. Like, he's trying to run from what he's done.
Yeah.
But you can't outrun your conscience, can you?
You almost get the sense that the harder he tries to run from it, the more haunted he becomes. That scene with the porter when he gets mistaken for the murderer and almost loses it. You can practically feel his heart pounding.
That scene, for sure. And then his encounters with Porfiry Petrovich, Dostoevsky, masterfully builds the psychological tension. He really does. Porfiry, I mean, he's not your typical detective, is he? All those mind games. He plays with Raskolnikov, constantly keeping him on edge. It's like he can see right through him.
Their conversations are like electric. The way they go back and forth about the nature of crime, punishment, and the way Porfiry drops these little hints, these breadcrumbs. You just know Raskolnikov's going to crack eventually.
And through it all, you have this other layer. The poverty, the social injustice, it's always there, simmering beneath the surface. That whole scene with the dinner party at Marmeladov's Katerina Ivanovna, her pride on full display, and then Luzhin with his despicable act framing Sonia. It's a reminder, I think, that moral corruption is not confined to any one social class.
Right, like Dostoevsky's holding up this mirror to society. It's
Yeah.
exposing the hypocrisy, the darkness that can exist at every level. And speaking of darkness, I mean, we can't avoid it any longer. We have to talk about Svidrigailov.
Oh, Svidrigailov, a
Yeah.
fascinating character, to say the least repulsive, certainly. But strangely compelling, too. He's like the dark side of that extraordinary man idea taken to its logical extreme, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. He's creepy, no doubt about it. The way he comes on to Dunya, those offers he makes shady. But then, just when you think you have him all figured out, he takes his own life. What do you think Dostoevsky was trying to say there with the suicide? Is it escape? Or is he just as trapped in death as he was in life?
It's a question that stays with you long after you finish the book.
Mm.
On one hand, you can see it as this act of desperation, right? Like there are some things, some depths of despair, so profound that death seems like the only way out. But on the other hand, it also begs the question, can you ever really escape yourself?
Yeah.
Even in death. And that leads us right back to Raskolnikov, because despite confessing, he doesn't seem to find peace. Not really, does he? He's sentenced to Siberia, yeah, but his suffering, it's far from over at that point. It's like Siberia itself, yeah, becomes a different kind of prison for him, surrounded by these hardened criminals, yeah, but he's isolated, really, in his own personal hell, wouldn't you say? Haunted by his past. Makes you think, right, about where real punishment comes from. Is it external? Or is it something we carry within ourselves?
Yeah, it's like that dream he keeps having, the one with the plague, so vivid, so terrifying, but symbolic too, right? Almost like he sees himself as this carrier, this moral disease that isolates him even further.
That imagery, the plague, yeah, it speaks to something larger, I think. The anxiety is Dostoevsky's time,
Yeah.
definitely. The fear of nihilism, right? The sense that everything was crumbling, traditional values, beliefs. And Raskolnikov, in a way, that's like this case study. And what happens when those systems collapse, and how we, as human beings, how we grapple with the consequences of that.
But even in that bleak landscape,
Yeah.
right, even there, Dostoevsky gives us Sonia. And her devotion, I mean, it's unwavering, isn't it? Her choice to follow him to Siberia. It's not just romantic love, it's more than that, wouldn't you say? Deeper.
It's that radical empathy Dostoevsky seems to be advocating for, I think. It's recognizing the humanity, even in someone who's committed a horrific act, that potential for change, for redemption. She sees it in Raskolnikov, even when he can't see it in himself. And her presence, it becomes this beacon, right? In all that darkness, a testament to hope.
It's a hard road, though, isn't it? A long and difficult process. And Dostoevsky, he didn't make it easy for us, for Raskolnikov. I mean, you see glimpses, right, of the old Raskolnikov, flashes of anger, denial, but then these small acts of kindness, helping the sick prisoner, for instance. It makes you wonder, is it genuine empathy? Or is he desperately seeking atonement any way he can?
That's the question that drives his entire journey, isn't it? Can we ever truly redeem ourselves? Or are we forever defined by our past? Those acts, those flickers of compassion, flawed as they might be, they suggest that maybe, just maybe, change is possible. And it's not about absolving him, right? Not about forgetting what he's done, but about recognizing that potential for growth, even in the darkest of places.
And it all culminates in that ending, which, let's be honest, it's pretty ambiguous. Confesses his love for Sonia, there's a sense of peace, maybe. But it's not tied up neatly with the bow, is it? Leaves you wondering, what happens next? What becomes of him?
And that's Dostoevsky, isn't it? He's not going to give us the easy answers, not going to spell it out for us. Raskolnikov's transformation is not this sudden epiphany, this light bulb moment. It's a process, a long and arduous one. He's on a path, yeah. But the journey, it's far from over at this point. He's got years of hard labor ahead, years of confronting his demons, of trying to rebuild a life he shattered.
So where does that leave us then? After this deep dive, after exploring all the psychological turmoil, the moral complexities, what do we take away from Raskolnikov and his struggles?
We're reminded, I think, that the human experience is messy. It's full of contradictions, capable of great darkness, yeah, but also incredible light. Dostoevsky, he's not offering solutions, really. He's holding up a mirror to these enduring questions, questions that continue to resonate with us today. Good and evil, redemption, the power of connection, even in the face of unimaginable suffering.
It's heavy stuff, no doubt, but ultimately, I think, hopeful. And a good reminder that literature, it has this power, doesn't it? To transport us to other worlds, to make us confront difficult truths about ourselves, about the world we live in. If you're looking for easy answers, Dostoevsky's probably not your guy. But if you're willing to sit with the discomfort, the ambiguity, his work is incredibly rewarding. And I have a feeling it'll stay with you long after you finish that last page. And with that, we're at the end of another deep dive. It's been a journey, hasn't it? And one, I suspect, that will stay with us for a while. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and as always, keep diving deep.